On Tuesday, the 95th MLB All-Star Game featured the first swing-off in MLB history. Welcome to the Dom Skeen channel, your one-stop shop for the Mariners storylines on Seattle's minds. And today, the Mariners all balled out, but the AL lost 6-6 for the first time in MLB history. The same number of runs were scored between the two teams. There was a tie All-Star game in Milwaukee, but this is the first time in my lifetime that the All-Star game has ended with the two teams tied. However, the NL takes this game, and it doesn't show up anywhere on the box score. I'm already having a bit of an aneurysm just looking at the box score, not seeing a single thing to indicate this swing off, except for that it says final one in tied, final tied, one in tiebreaker. I mean, I hate that. We've got to figure out a way to implement this thing into the box score and score this thing, because if anybody was to be holding a scorecard at the All-Star game, I don't know what they were writing in that thing at this point, or anybody at home, anybody who was trying to score this whole thing. I wonder how it works, or how we're going to proceed moving forward, because undoubtedly, seeing the success of this swing off, it's going to dominate the news cycle, and it's going to be great for the game. The MLB is going to love this, and I find it hard to believe that we won't see this implemented to a further degree later down the line. Definitely going to stay in the All-Star format, but it's just not out of the question that you could see this happen in a game format. And I mean, God forbid, extra innings could go the way of the dodo bird. Anyway, it's possible. But looking at this one, Kyle Schwarber dominates the first ever swing off, goes 3 for 3, puts the pressure on Jonathan Aranda. Starts out with Kyle Stowers. Brent Rooker starts the swing off, goes 2 for 3. Does that's very well. I'm thinking like maybe 7 for 9 you'll need to win this. Maybe 6 for 9 would be like average. So I'm like, there's no way these guys can't go 2 out of 3. And looking at the home run derby, when they have 40 swings, you get at least 20, but that the time is a bigger constriction there. Then when it's 27 swings, they get over half of them usually, if they're on pace to win the thing. So I'm expecting a little more than half in a home run derby format if it's swings should go out of the yard. And Brent Rooker starts off great for the AL. Only time I'll ever root for him, because it's the only time. I still root for the AL just because. Come on, why not? Obviously, I root against the players I hate the most at times when it doesn't affect the game. But when Brent Rooker's got a chance to win it for the American League, even I, as a Seattle Mariners fan, love getting behind him just this once. He puts 2 of them out, does a very good job, and then brings up Kyle Stowers, who goes first for the NL, coming off of a 3-homer game on Sunday. He only gets 1 out of 3, so that puts a little bit, puts Randy Arozarena of the Mariners in a great position. I'm extremely excited seeing that Randy has a chance to really put this thing out in front for the AL if he can go 2 for 3 or even 3 for 3. He ends up going 1 for 3. A little bit of a disappointment. That first one that he hit really wasn't that good. And even as far as the looking at StatCast right here, looking at Baseball Savant, I don't see the swing off stuff on Baseball Savant. Somebody please let me know if you can find the swing off on Baseball Savant, because I, for the life of me, cannot. I know we have it for the Derby, so I just find it hard to believe that it wouldn't be turned on for the swing off. I know they're measuring distance. Come on. Somebody let me know in the comments, where do you find StatCast data for that swing off? Also, let me know, how do we put this thing in the box score on a scorecard? I'm just curious, because first one in MLB history here. And then, after Randy goes, gets 1 of 3. Brent Rooker got 2 of 3, for the AL. Kyle Stowers gets 1 of 3 for the NL, so AL leads by 1 going into the second round. Randy gets 1 out of 3, so then Kyle Schwarber comes up with his chance for the National League. They're only 1 behind, and he has 3 swings, so all he has to do is hit 1 of 3 to tie it. I think he had to hit 2 of, because they were down by 1. Randy hits one. So we know that Schwarber has to hit 2 now to tie the AL, but he puts the NL ahead because he goes 3 for 3. He wins the game or wins the All-Star game for the NL with just those 3 swings of the bat, and he was absolutely aura farming when he did it. Goes down to one knee. The amount of balance that it takes Kyle Schwarber to not fall over the plate the way that Julio usually does when he, just absolutely hacks, tries to pull the ball over the wall like that. It's just incredibly impressive the way that Schwarber stays balanced, and he's such a thick, big dude. He's beefy. He's, the fact that a super athlete like Julio is falling over the plate trying to, get that swing going, but that Schwarber can just go down to a knee and stay there and hold that position and just aura farm. Looks absolutely sick. We're going to see replays of that for years to come. Pretty awesome moment there. But after that, you've got Jonathan Aranda coming up, the last guy for the AL. He's just got to hit one of these 3 homers to tie Schwarber, who just put the National League ahead by 1. And unfortunately, Jonathan Aranda completely sold for the AL, went 0 for 3, didn't hit a single homer. The second swing of his should have been a homer. It hits the brick wall under the chop house in right field in Atlanta. Unfortunate, just off the top of the brick wall, and just those few feet prevented us from seeing Pete Alonso, Polar Bear Pete Alonso, who was the finisher of this swing-off competition, was preparing in the cage in the 9th inning before they'd even announced on the broadcast the whole swing-off format and stuff. So you knew Pete Alonso was going to be the main attraction in this swing-off. And this whole thing is for the fans anyway. And then he doesn't even get to hit because Jonathan Aranda sells for everybody involved and goes 0 for 3. Unfortunate, but he's also not the biggest power guy. So the question is, why did Jonathan Aranda get picked there to go in that 3 spot? Which also, for Mariners fans, if you remember when this swing off was announced back 2 years ago in 2023 as well, when it was in Dodger Stadium, the All-Star game. It's funny because, obviously Ohtani and everybody, but the swing off participants were announced for the AL prior to the game. And the AL manager, I think it was Aaron Boone. Sorry, no, it was, I think it was Dusty Baker at that time, or it might have been Kevin Cash, I don't even remember. But I remember that he announced his 3 swing-off participants, if the game were tied, would be Julio Rodriguez, Ty France, and Kyle Tucker. And I think he said Ty France would have gone 3rd, too, which is interesting because it's another first baseman who survives off barreling up the ball. I was confused as to why you'd put him in there when you had so many power hitters in that AL lineup that year. From J-Ram to, Judge, all these different guys. Just baffles me why France got chosen then. Obviously there wasn't a swing off. But now that there is a swing off, Aranda was the guy chosen to be that final leg of the relay race. Just doesn't, I'm curious as to why. If you have a good answer as to why, let me down in the comments below. But with that being said, looking at the rest of the game, I want to look at exactly what the Mariners did here. Cal Raleigh goes out. Excellent. He basically should have had a double in this one. Excellent piece of hitting. He gets a pitch away, just puts a beautiful level swing on it the day after he wins the home run derby. And the home run derby champ singles very smoothly into right field. Fernando Tatis, who came in for Ronald Acuna at the very beginning of this game pretty much, cuts it off though. He got a really good jump kind of running to that ball, even though it's sailing on the ground into the warning track basically in right center in the power alley. Tatis just got over so quick that Cal had to cut it off, and he couldn't advance to second, didn't get himself an extra base hit in this game. But he does go 1 for 2, and also does a good job behind the plate. The interviews in this All-Star game, I want to know what you guys think about this as well. The interviews in this All-Star game, I've never loved them. Usually they'll do like 10 interviews in an All-Star game. More than half of the innings of the game, they'll have somebody mic'd up in the field. They'll be talking to them, and maybe you get one really good interview out of each year. Like Julio, sometimes, and it'll just be a guy who's like saying, "Oh, this is sick," as he catches it, or making a joke on the microphone, but they're really not able to have any sort of deep conversation or anything. They're just getting mic'd up, and the athletes are just trying to focus. So, you got the players, who are there, and whether it's Matt Olson or some of the other guys they had today, none of them really like Jacob Wilson gave some decent answers, but like they're trying to focus on the game. So what happens is like the announcers, the Fox Sports guys, they'll be A-Rod or Big Poppy, they'll be like, oh yeah, hey, blah blah blah, they'll say something really long to basically explain the basic idea of like to Cal Raleigh, they'll be like, hey, so Cal Raleigh, we've got you mic'd up, you're catching Tarek Skubal in inning 1 of the All-Star game. Now we're going to ask you about the most basic accomplishments that you've had this season that most people who are watching the All-Star game already know, but we want to make sure that we catch the entire national audience up to speed who doesn't know what you're doing, who only watches Phillies games or whatever, right? So you have all these very, very basic things like, hey, Cal Raleigh, so you're the MLB home run leader right now. Tell us what that's like. And Cal Raleigh's like trying to, communicate with the pitcher, trying to frame these pitches. And it's just funny to watch these ball players as they try to focus on the game. They'll be like, they get words put in their mouth, by the, A-Rod or Big Poppy or whoever it is. And then they'll be like, oh, yeah, it's really cool and it's really funny and it's really interesting and yeah. They're just trying to shrug off the entire interview. So it's always entertaining watching for the first half of the game. They'll be doing all these on-field interviews during the game. The players are trying to focus on the game. And it's just like if you're at a ball game and you've got somebody who's, who's like yapping about stuff that's not related to baseball. And you're just trying to focus on the game. And you're literally feeling like those ball players, when they're getting interviewed on Fox Sports and they're trying to focus on the game. It's like, oh yeah, just try. It's like, shut up and let me watch this game. Shut up and let me focus on the game. For them, it's like, shut up and let me play the game. I just think that is hilarious every year with the All-Star game, those on-field interviews. I get a kick out of it. There's my little rant on it. But every year they get one good one, or they get one good soundbite, and they use it the whole year. And it's decent content, whatever it is. And then they use that as the excuse to do it again the next year. And they do get some good little nuggets of content, so not to completely just trash it. But I think the best is when they interview the managers in the dugout or, the guys in the dugout, because they're all just totally, shooting the crap, in the dugout. Pretty funny to see. Cal just hanging out for half the game with his hat turned sideways like that. All these guys that you wouldn't usually see, just completely casual, just kind of chopping it up with, the fraternity of MLB's best players. Their league's best players in the dugout. Always awesome to see. So to see our boy Cal up there, kind of looking like Big Dog, right? Everybody's laughing at his jokes and stuff. He kind of looks like he's got some of the most swag in that dugout. If anybody had told you that they foresaw it when he came up, then no, they didn't, because nobody really, foresaw this level of success right now for Cal. But it is just a joy and a blessing to be able to experience and live in the same time and be a Mariners fan at the same time, as Cal Raleigh has the best season a catcher ever has, and maybe will for a long time after. But everybody got in the game on both sides except for one player on the AL, a relief pitcher, Josh Hader. Every single other player got in the game. One thing that really interested me and opens up a can of worms is the fact that James Wood pinch hit for Hunter Goodman, then Hunter Goodman came back into the game. And I think they've said in the All-Star game, like in the case of injury or, guys not wanting to play, guys needing a catcher or needing a position, they let guys do this. But I just think it opens up a can of worms that, again, I don't know how you're supposed to score this. There's really nothing that shows in the score sheet that James Wood pinch hit for the catcher, and then nobody filled in. It just shows that it looks like nobody filled in for him at catcher at all, which obviously, I mean, I will say the scorecard got an absolute beating tonight with the All-Star Game's funny new 21st century rules. And then looking at the pitchers, I mean, a bunch of swinging strikes all over the place, just StatCast anomalies all over the place. Tons of, I mean, usually in a game, right, you don't see tons of pitches above 100. Today, it's littered with it, with the top ones being Jacob Mizorowski, but top exit velocities, tons and tons in the hundreds, way more than a normal game. Expected batting averages and stuff in this game, not the most important thing to look at. Not important to look at the stats in the All-Star Game at all, really. But just to give you guys the stats for the Mariners, just so that we can remember them by that. Randy doesn't get a hit, but does hit a homer in the swing off. So I did say Randy was going to hit a homer. He hit one in the swing off. So whether you want to count that prediction correct or not, it's up to you. But I will. And then, Byron Buxton gets a hit. Bobby Witt gets a hit. 9 hits for the AL, and the game was out of reach for most of it. The NL goes up 2-0 in the first inning. Skubal had never, I think, allowed 3 or 4 hits in an inning before that this entire year. It was Randy Rodriguez had not allowed 3 runs in an inning or more this entire year, or since April or something like that. I forget what it was. Something about Randy Rodriguez. Something about Tarek Skubal. Both of them had somehow their worst inning of the year, or of the year this far, something like that. But Brian Wu does come in, our Seattle Mariner, gets 3 cleanouts on 8 pitches, and Munoz also has a relatively quick outing. Wu, real quick, 2 whiffs on 8 pitches, both on the 4-seamer, only need to throw 6 of them, but gets some swinging strikes, gets a little bit of weak contact. And there you go. Also, Wu picks up a strikeout. So great to see there. And then Munoz comes in for 0.2 innings. Allows a walk, but also gets a strikeout on 18 pitches. Holds the line for the AL. Munoz had a pretty... it was fun to see him late in the game in a leverage situation when the AL was bringing it back. Because, as I said, the NL scored first off of Tarek Skubal. You had a bunch of contact hitting to start the game. Shohei, slap piece of hitting, into the gap. Then you had Acuna, basically just hit it, a dribbler at second base that he beat out. Then you got runners on first and second pretty quickly. Then Marte just doubles them both home down the line, and before you know it, the NL's up 2-0. The AL doesn't come back for a while, and then the NL really gets into business as Pete Alonso hits a 3-run homer in the 6th inning. Corbin Carroll answers with a solo shot of his own as well. Then I think it was Chris Bubich. Didn't get out of that inning, only got 1 out, so ref for him. Casey Mize comes in, gives up the homer to Corbin Carroll, and then he gets the final 2 outs that inning. Then turns over Carlos Estevez. Shane Smith comes in for just 10 pitches, gets 1 out, and hits Eugenio Suarez. It looked pretty gnarly, hitting Suarez right in the knuckle, kind of on the side of the knuckle right there. And it looked pretty gnarly the way that it his hand. So best wishes and prayers up for Eugenio Suarez, former Mariner. He did look great, I will say, when he made that big time throw that Mariners fans miss at the end of the game. If you're a Mariners fan, man, you missed that big time, that big time arm that Eugenio has, and the instincts and the reflexes. You can't teach, Perry Hill can teach a lot of great things. He gets the best out of every defender he works with. But you cannot teach that arm. That is Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Eugenio Suarez type stuff. And then the AL gets the tie-in run, basically. The AL scores 4 runs in the 7th inning. We get Brent Rooker, 3-run shot. And then you get things tied up. Bobby Witt Buxton gets a hit. Um, and who else? Oh, Michael Garcia got a hit first. Or he walked. Uh, Buxton got a hit. Witt doubled them both home, and then I think Jazz comes up, hits the ball. Matt Olson right after Gino makes this insane bare hand rocket arm Patrick Mahomes style play. Matt Olson makes an insane play at first, diving down the line to rob Jazz Chisholm of what would have been the game tying hit. Robs Jazz Chisholm with that hit. Then Stephen Kwan comes up. He gets the game tying hit. He gets an RBI double. No, sorry, it was a single, RBI single. Then the game's tied, and we go to the swing off where everything ensues. First swing off in MLB history. Scorecard got a thrashing tonight. Kyle Schwarber named All-Star Game MVP after this. Gives the precedent, which is interesting, that everything that happens in the 9 innings, cross that off the list. It was all even, so nobody from that is winning the MVP. We're giving it to the guy who won the swing off. Real quick on Munoz as well. I wanted to say just one whiff on 18 pitches for Munoz, but gets a little bit of weak contact. It's a good challenge for Munoz. Just got to be really, really fun, and a good challenge for Munoz just to go up against some of the best in the game. Munoz ended up pitching against Corbin Carroll, walked him, then came in after Shane Smith hit Gino. Then you had Corbin Carroll walk. You had Ellie fly out on 4 pitches, 3 4-seamers, and a slider gets it on the 4-seamer there. Then he gets Kyle Stowers on a called strike. And then, this one was funny because they challenged it on the ABS. There was the automatic balls and strikes for the first time in a major league game tonight. And the ones that you want to talk about the most, probably 2 that have to do with Mariners. One where it goes our way, where Munoz gets Stowers on a 4-seamer that's right below the zone, and Stowers challenges it. Then Munoz just barely gets it, and when it comes in on the ABS, you see it just barely catches the zone, so it just barely works out in our favor. Then there was one with Randy and Edwin Diaz, the last AL at bat of the game, in the top of the 9th, where Randy takes 2 sliders down the pipe, doesn't end up doesn't even end up swinging at him. Then he takes a third 4-seamer, which is on the outside, at least at first, and then they challenge it essentially. I forget, there's a catcher challenge too, so I think it was Diaz who challenged it and not the catcher, but I think Diaz did. And then Randy's like, you can see Randy's face then, he's like, what are you going to do? So Randy gets called out on strikes by a challenge. It was a ball originally and then overturned to a strike. What are you going to do? And then the last thing I wanted to say, all the Mariners balled out. Kyle Schwarber named All-Star Game MVP. After the swing off, basically you throw out everything that happened in the game when it comes to the MVP voting, because it was dead even. Honestly, I think this is a great All-Star game for the MLB. Excited for the second half of the season. Gonna have a lot more content coming right here on the Dom Skiing channel. 162 games going to be covered here for the Mariners. And I'm going to have a few more things that I'm going to be announcing in the next few days, so stay tuned for that. That being said, I've been your boy Dom Skiing. Be sure to subscribe, turn on that bell for notifications every time I drop a video right after the games. And with that being said, I will see you guys the rest of this break and for the second half. Go M's.